I had trouble with that, but I got it to work. Now I'm just turn. This takes a long time to load. So 2 minutes. See, that's why I started at 12 minutes ahead of time. It takes just to press a button to get it to function. It took me 10 minutes to turn it off. And, 30 July, Planning and Zoning Commission. 30 July, test.
It's brand new, it's by anybody. That's why that more than 18 inches, you gotta have a rail. Somebody doesn't fall off the deck. That's why it's to be mean. It's just health and safety. That's what it's for. The other, that's, building for 40 years. I've had that discussion with the fishermen.
I'm ready, Rolf.
Most of the time. And so I use common sense too.
Good evening, and I'll call to order the agenda for the special meeting, or the special meeting for the Planning and Zoning Commission of the Village of Camden Hills for July 30th, 2025. Have a roll call, Mr. Rumford.
Sure. Commissioner Anderson?
Here.
Chairman Frederick?
Here.
Commissioner Teat?
Here.
Mr. Kopak?
Present.
Commissioner Johnson?
Here.
Commissioner McKelvey is absent. Commissioner Arario?
Here.
And we also have the village attorney.
All right, we have a quorum. Very good. On to item number 3, approving the minutes of the Planning and Zoning Commission special meeting on July 9th. I had no comments. Does anybody else have any corrections, additions? No? Okay. All right. Okay, got a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion carries, the minutes are approved as presented. Item number 4, public comments, non-agenda items. So something that's not on the agenda, so the headwaters is obviously on the agenda. But if there's something else, that would be this is your opportunity now to speak. If not, if we're going to talk about headwaters, there'll be ample time for everybody to make their comments when we go to that item on the agenda. So seeing no one coming forward, there'll be no public comments on non-agenda items. Item number 5, public hearing for the Headwaters Academy application for special use. This is continued public hearing from the meeting of July 9th. A couple of things I would like to say to start off. The minutes have it pretty much, it's almost verbatim. It's not quite, but it's almost verbatim. The minutes from the last meeting. So we're pretty well understanding of what comments were made last time. So my request is, if you've made comments before, I don't feel you have to make those comments again. They are in the record. And if you feel like you want to, that's fine. But my point is I'd like to hear the input and the concerns and the other perspectives that we haven't heard before, or enhance some of the things that we have heard. All right, So that'd be my request, rather than repeating everything we did at the last meeting. So, if you'd like to come forward, that'd be fine. I just ask that you could just try to narrow those points, so we're not repeating things over and over. So appreciate that. One other thing that came up too, it's come up before, I mentioned it at the last meeting, concerning covenants and restrictions for subdivisions. And the Village of Camden Hills does not enforce covenants and restrictions for a subdivision. That is not the purpose and the role that the village plays, all right? Those are in effect, or can be in effect, or could expire, but they are, if a subdivision has any covenants and restrictions in effect, that is up to the homeowners association to enforce those. It is not up to the village to enforce those. There's dozens of subdivisions that have all different types of rules and regulations or covenants and restrictions. The village has no input in those, and it's not the village's responsibility to play arbitrator or referee, going to each different subdivision with all different rules and enforcing things that they have no input on, all right? So, just trying to make sure everybody's clear and understanding that the homeowners association also is the media that they should, or the entity that should be trying to enforce those covenants and restrictions if the subdivision decides to do that, okay? All right, so last time we started off with the petitioner making the presentation, and I would like to invite the petitioner and or the representative of the petitioner to step forward and add any information that they'd like.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Hal Frank. It's spelled F-R-A-N-C-K-E. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Meltzer, Purtill, and Stell, M-E-L-T-Z-E-R, P-U-R-T-I-L-L, and Stell, S-T-E-L-L-E. My office is at 1450 American Lane in Schaumburg, and I am pleased to be before you this evening as the attorney for Headwaters Academy. I would like to begin, first of all, by thanking you for accommodating our client's request for a continuance at the last meeting and for agreeing to entertain a special meeting for this evening. We truly appreciate that. We do have a presentation to share with everybody this evening. Our goal is to briefly summarize some of what was said on June 18th. As I believe all of you know, I was not present on June 18th. So I've asked Sarah Elliott at the beginning of the presentation, the executive director of Headwaters Academy, to again introduce everybody to the academy and the plan here for the operation of this school on this property. The remainder of our presentation is to address, we've devoted to addressing some of the issues that have been expressed both at the original public hearing session on June 18th and also in the public comment that we have seen everybody has submitted and we have reviewed the public comment. So this evening, hopefully we can do this way. We're going to run through a brief presentation. The only individuals that we have programmed to speak to you this evening are myself, Sarah Elliott, and we have a traffic engineer recognizing that traffic is a concern for some of the neighbors. We understand the overarching issue and concern about establishing a school of this nature in this location. We're going to address that a little bit later on in our presentation, and obviously we understand some of the more detailed concerns that have been raised in the letters and the testimony that we're going to address. Okay, now. So again, this is a brief overview of what we're going to run through tonight. Again, who we are, Headwaters Academy, a brief summary again for some that might not have been here on June 18th, a description of the property, its location, its features, things like that. As Sarah's going to run through that, in addition to the information on the current and anticipated enrollment of the school, and hours of operation, a little bit of comment on the noise concerns that were expressed at the earlier meeting, concerns about security and students wandering off-site. Then you will hear from our traffic engineer, who has prepared a brief memorandum. We've shared that. I've given copies to Mr. Brown. Nobody expects you. We're just hearing about it tonight. We're just receiving the written report, so nobody's expecting you to read it right now on the fly. And then I will approach you again on the special use standards that are contemplated by your zoning ordinance. I think everybody understands at this point in time that the property is zoned RE2 residential, and your zoning ordinance establishes this type of school as an authorized special use in that district. So that means you can apply for it, and you have to establish through facts that you satisfy the standards for the approval of a special use request. So I'm going to run through that at the end of the presentation. And then, if you look at your zoning ordinance, you know that special uses, as opposed to permitted uses within a zoning district, are considered to be of a unique nature, such that in order to allow them to be established, maintained, and operated on a given piece of property, it might be appropriate to do all of that, but only if certain conditions are established. So your ordinance says, when the time comes for you to make a recommendation to your village board, you can make a recommendation to approve as is. You can make a recommendation to deny, or what most commonly occurs is you can make a recommendation to approve, but subject to certain conditions. So we're going to identify possible conditions I will identify certain possible conditions of approval should you be comfortable, recommending approval of the requested special use to the village board, which is obviously what we're hoping for. Some of the conditions, when we get there, you'll see they're already in your staff report from the July 9th agenda packet. And then based on the facts you're going to hear tonight, we will offer up some additional considerations for you to consider. So with that, I would like to turn the floor over to Sarah Elliott. She's Executive Director of Headwaters Academy. She can explain to everybody again exactly what the Academy is doing and intending to do in the future, where it's operating, what its development plans are for the future on this property. And with that, I will turn the floor over.
Thank you, Al. And I'd like to extend my gratitude also for all of you. I know you are volunteering your time to do this, and I appreciate your consideration. So last time I was able to share with you some about Headwaters. I'll mention a couple items here. Obviously, you can read the slide. We are a community of parents and educators. We really seek to have an alternative and an independent way for students to learn here in Northern Illinois. There are very few options, and the Academy will prioritize time in nature throughout all the seasons for our students in kindergarten through 8th grade. We put high value on ecological stewardship and sustainable food systems. This appreciation for agriculture and learning about agriculture aligns very well with the Village of Campton Hills, as does supporting community in school. So we are building an educational home where students can develop that love for community. All right. So much of this is available in your packet, but just for review, the property that we are discussing is located on the north side of Campton Hills Road, about halfway between Anderson and Town Hall. It's rectangular with one 2-story house and several accessory buildings. A fence encloses the rear 2/3 of the property, and I'll show you the plat of survey where that is on the next slide. So the following dimensions are noteworthy. It is 305 feet of frontage. It is 720 feet deep. The distance from residents from Campton Hills Road is about 200 feet off the road, and then the distance to the nearest lot line is about 41 feet. So here's the plat of survey. As you can see, it marked in yellow. All of that is fenced. maybe on the side ones you can read better, but this aerial shot shows the distance from the property line to the adjacent houses. And so that's just a straight line to the property. If you're talking about to the schoolhouse, all of them are over 150 feet. So some of them are over 300, almost 400 feet away. Just given the visual. Now I'm going to move through these a bit more quickly to give you a visual representation of what the property looks like. This is the view looking north towards the schoolhouse. The second one is looking towards the barn up like an additional drive. This is about 300 feet into the property. This is down the driveway closer towards Campton Hills Road, looking up towards the schoolhouse, and then a view of where we have added a circular driveway. All of these photos are directly from Jim Brown's packet. So looking on the southeastern property line, looking on the north of the circular drive, this is essentially the front yard, if you will, and that white fence you see in the back is that fence that crosses the midline of the property that was on the plat survey. This is looking north towards residence, and then south from the residence down driveway. This is the view looking west towards the adjacent property, and west from the front yard towards the neighboring property. Looking northwest. This is a little, think north along the west property line towards the neighboring property. These were all taken in May, so some of them there's been mowing for that since then. So, just to give a little overview of where we're at right now, we currently have 18 students enrolled. We will cap it at 25 for the 25-26 school year. Ultimately, we will not exceed 45 students entirely in our school. We have 3 teachers and an administrator, and 3 other staff members that help support the standing up of the school, myself included. Our hours of operation will be 8 to 5. That's not the school day, but that gives time for the teachers and administrators to do their before and after work. We took a decibel meter out while 10 children were playing in the back, directly behind the house, so where that smiley face is located. So 100 feet away near the eastern property line, the decibels measured 40 to 45, which is a comparison to the sound level of a quiet library. At 200 feet away near the property line, decibels also measured 42 to 45, and the thing that made it register like 48 is a bird song, just so you understand like the loud level we're talking about. And at 350 feet away near the northern property line, the decibels were at 37, which is ambient light wind or distant birds. So I'll speak a little bit more to the fencing on the property. There's a number of different types of fencing around the property. A chain link and a landscaping runs along the eastern property, the eastern side, and then on the southeast side of the property, there's a metal fence with a locking gate. It's an iron fence with a locking gate that will be permanently locked during school hours, so children will not be able to leave. The southwestern side, the fence enclosures are vinyl fencing with a gated entry that could also be locked. The western and northern fences are powder-coated metal agriculture fencing, in addition to a thick row of bushes and trees. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about our plans for drop-off and pickup as it pertains to traffic concerns. Drop-off would begin at 8:45 a.m. and end at 9, and then pickup would begin at 3:15 and run until 3:30. So this is what the parents receive. So this is not really written towards you, but towards our parents. So children will be prepared to exit quickly to keep the line moving. We're yielding to incoming cars and making only right turns. We are making sure every year that parents know not to turn onto other auxiliary streets like Farmview or Country View. We're asking them not to exit their vehicle during drop-off If there is a situation where a child needs a little bit more hand-holding from a parent, there are 2 spaces they could potentially park in front of the house, the schoolhouse, and walk a child into school. And that would not impede the drop-off line in any way. We already have placards made for each family to put at the front of their car, so when they're coming to pick up their children, they can do it as quickly as possible. We can identify whose family that is. We are ensuring that we will install appropriate signage as the police chief may direct, communicating the driveway's use and the movement limitations. Also, another piece that we will always include in our parent handbook that goes out yearly to that will go out yearly to students and parents to communicate to them the expectation around drop-off and pickup, so that everyone knows. And then if there are issues, we communicate regularly with parents, and we will reinforce the policies that we have in place. I will pass it over to
Thank you, Sarah. At this time, I'd like to introduce you to Andrew Bowen, who is a traffic engineer with the firm of KLOA Inc. Again, Andrew is the author of the traffic memorandum that you've received. Somebody else from his office came out and inspected the site and provided him some of the information that's included in the memorandum. So, Andrew, if you could please introduce yourself and tell the commissioners a little bit about yourself.
Like you said, my name is Andrew Bowen from KLOA. We are a traffic consulting company out of Rosemont. We've been doing this for a while. We do lots of stuff like this, and I've worked on many school projects in recent times. Many of them much larger than this, but certainly a lot of the same principles apply. The school site, like they've already mentioned, is located on the north side of Campton Hills Road, and the driveway is off of that roadway. Campton Hills Road is a minor arterial roadway, and traffic counts on the road show that throughout an entire day, the road carries about 600 vehicles. So during a single hour in the morning or afternoon, during which pickup or drop-off would be occurring, the road's expected to carry around 60 total vehicles, a relatively low volume. Like he said, we went out to the site and we looked at the existing driveway and the existing circulation that they have set up. Now, the circle driveway they've added is a recent addition, and that alone would help improve operations, but we have some further recommendations on how to ensure that traffic operates efficiently and that pickup and drop-off works smoothly. These pictures here show the view from the driveway looking out onto Campton Hills Road, and I'll have some extra comments about this specific view in a minute. All right, getting into our recommendations. These are at the end of the memo that we provided. Oh wait, no, sorry. First we have our estimated trip generation. Now this is based on the Institute of Transportation Engineer rates. These are based on surveys conducted at other private schools throughout the country and provide rates to estimate about how many vehicles will be using the site. Now, this is the ultimate number of students. This is with 45 students, and so these are the maximum amount of traffic we expect to see during a single hour. This is a little lower than the number of students. That's because it's expected that many students will carpool or have children from the same families, one of the biggest ones. This also does include some staff that will arrive, but it's important to note that staff will likely arrive outside of those pickup and drop-off periods, already being on site in the morning or leaving after drop or pickup in the afternoon. All right, now getting into some of our recommendations. The first and most important is the widening of the driveway between the start of the Circle Drive and Campton Hills Road. Widening it to about 20 feet will allow this segment to operate with two-way. What we don't want to occur is a vehicle leaving the site preventing somebody from entering into the site, which could create issues. If the two-way traffic can flow on this segment here, the entire internal loop can operate with cars traveling through the whole thing, no conflicts, no vehicles blocking another vehicle, so that things can keep flowing smoothly, even if there are people waiting to exit the site. New cars can continue to enter, preventing backups on Camden Hills. Next is just a recommendation for the north end of the circular drive, just to widen the existing pavement, just to promote this circulation that I was talking about, and ensure that vehicles can turn and they don't have to wait for anyone else to move or anything like that. Another recommendation we have, and I'm going to go back to these pictures, is that there is bushes and shrubbery that kind of block some of the sight lines, which can make exiting the site a little difficult. And some of this is in the right-of-way of the road, and so our recommendation is that that existing plant life be trimmed within the road right-of-way, just to ensure that sight lines exiting are sufficient. This next one kind of ties into the first two, and that's increasing the radii of the driveway at Camden Hills Road. This just allows for people to enter more smoothly, and further promotes the ability for vehicles to enter and exit at the same time. Right. So we were looking at pickup time as a particular point of concern. Unlike in the morning, parents are expected to arrive early and wait for their students to be done. We looked at the site, and with the improvements I had already suggested, around 13 to 14 cars can easily stack within the site on this circular road before anything flows out of the site. This is, given the lower trip generation volumes we expect for a school like this, we anticipate this can accommodate most of the students leaving and most of the parents waiting without creating issues. When the site reaches closer to its ultimate number of students of 45, this may be insufficient, and that is where our next point comes into play, which is we recommend that once they get more students, right? Their current plan to have 25 students next year shouldn't be an issue, but if they get 35, 45 students, that in the afternoon, the students be broken into two different groups with a staggered pickup time. This would allow for 13 to 14 cars to stack, the first group of students to get in their car, all of those cars to leave, and then 15 to 20 minutes later, a new set of 13 to 14 cars could stack. This dramatically increases the amount of cars that could be held on site and would really eliminate the chance that vehicles are queuing out of the site. In the morning, a similar process could be implemented if necessary, but generally that's less of an issue as parents arrive, drop off their student, and immediately leave rather than waiting on site, having to wait. In the morning, the bigger concern is efficiency and making sure things circulate fast, which is what our other recommendations address. Our last recommendation is something we've already mentioned, which is in the evening or in the afternoon when pickup is occurring, or students or vehicles leaving the site should be restricted to turning right, or at least encouraged to turn right on Camden Hills. This just makes sure that cars get out quickly. Waiting to turn left could create delays and back things up internally. If vehicles are restricted to turn right, they can exit much faster, and that ensures that things continue to operate smoothly. And that's
Thank you, Andrew.
Can I ask a question?
As I said,
Can I ask a question? Yeah, me too.
No, I just like to have a
You
presentation.
wanted
for right
them
now.
to go through?
Yeah, just have a presentation for right now, and then we'll have opportunity for questions.
then, as I said at the beginning, your ordinance contemplates the consideration of certain standards if one requests the approval of a special use. So I'm going to run briefly through that. That's the reason that we provided you the testimony tonight from Sarah and prior testimony and the testimony from Andrew is so that you could decide whether or not these standards, these legal standards have been met, because your ordinance says in order to establish whether the standards are met, you're supposed to make some findings of fact. So what you see here first bold font are the standards, and then in bullets below it are the facts that we think you could point to say the standard has been met. So very quickly, the first standard is that the proposed special use will not endanger the public health, safety, or welfare. And we would respectfully suggest that that finding could be made based on the following facts. The property is 5 acres in area. The homes to the west are approximately 450 feet or more away from the proposed school, and the homes to the east are at least 200 feet or more away. As you heard and saw this evening, the property is buffered from the surrounding properties by heavy vegetation and fences. The applicant obviously has agreed to and will agree to operate and maintain the school and all the improvements on the property in accordance with all village codes and ordinances and regulations, including the standards in the village code regulating nuisances, which we are specifically citing here because of the concerns expressed at the first session on June 18th. Our client, the academy, has already been contacted by the local fire protection district and been told that because this will be an elementary use, the building will need to be sprinklered, which is not a problem, obviously, because it's required. You heard about the enrollment current for this coming year and ultimately the plan for the future. So there would be limits to how many students would be here at any one time. And then finally, the school will only operate during the week, as you heard, from 8 to 5, and actual class time would be from 9 to 3. The next standard, or this is a continuation of the first standard, you heard this evening, and it's also in your agenda packet, the report memo from Mr. Brown, that Campton Hills Road is not a heavily trafficked road. It's a local road, I believe. It's under the village's jurisdiction. It carries on average only 600 or so vehicles per day. We believe that the limited enrollment, limited hours of operation will create minimal impact on road traffic. We talked about the drop-off and pickup procedures tonight, which is something that the village has the ability to monitor and make sure that those are implemented in a way that also precludes adverse traffic impact on Campton Hills Road. All the activities will occur either indoors or in an enclosed area, again, an area that's been fenced. One of the things I know that came out of the discussion on June 18th and in some of the writings, comments that were submitted by neighbors was the concern about after-school events and third-party rentals of the facility. The applicant, Headwaters Academy and Sarah are agreeable to a condition that would say there would not be more than 12 school events in any year. Those would begin after 5. In other words, fundraisers, parent-teacher conferences, school performances, things like that. And she would agree that they would have to be over by 10 o'clock. And again, that's no more than 1 per month or 2 per month if there's nothing in the summer. And then finally, there would be no problem agreeing to or accepting the condition that the school could not be leased out to third parties for a wedding or something like that. There's no intention to do that. The property is zoned, as I said at the beginning, in the residential estate 2 zoning district. As I said earlier, your zoning ordinance already acknowledges that an elementary school is an authorized special use. That means it can go there. It doesn't have to go. But the concept behind this and the village's zoning ordinance is no different than most municipal zoning ordinances both in the Chicago area and around the country. It's very common to find schools and churches and other religious institutions as authorized special uses in the residential districts of our communities. Why? Because that's the way the country evolved. People walked to school, they took their carriages to school, they wanted to have their kids be able to walk and bike to school. So you'll find that the way the Hampton Hill zoning ordinance is written is very similar to, virtually every zoning ordinance in the area. Not that schools or churches are permitted uses, they're typically authorized special uses in these residential districts. And there's actually an Illinois Supreme Court case that goes back now almost 25 years that specifically said, the Supreme Court held, that when a municipality identifies a particular use as an authorized special use in a particular district, the village has basically already made the legislative determination that that use is not inconsistent with the public's health, safety, morals, or welfare. I'm citing this because, again, I appreciate the fact that a number of residents in the area, a number of neighbors, think it's not an appropriate use in this location. But I would respectfully suggest that the fact that the village has identified this type of use, an elementary school, as an authorized special use in the residential districts, I would say the village as an entity has already made the determination that this use can be established. It doesn't have to be, but it can be established in this district in a way that is not inconsistent with public health, safety, morals, or general welfare. Now, does that mean that the village has to approve every application for any school that comes before you? No, that's not what it means. That's why you still have to evaluate each property and each request for a school or a special use for a school on its own merits. And that's why you have to look at the facts, and that's why we have presented those this evening. Another standard that is provided for in the zoning ordinance is that the proposed use is compatible with land use of adjacent properties and other property within the immediate vicinity. We think this standard is met by the fact that the area is comprised of estate residential properties and agricultural fields. This is, again, a 5-acre parcel. It will be, from a use standpoint, a land use category totally compatible with residential uses, agricultural uses, and as we've indicated here, we believe the school can operate with minimal impacts on the surrounding area, given the limited enrollment, limited hours of operation, and the commitments that Headwaters Academy is prepared to make. Finally, the ordinance asks you to consider whether the use in this location is consistent with the spirit and intent of the zoning ordinance and the village's adopted land use policies. Again, we would respectfully suggest that that standard is satisfied by the following facts. The various, again, not to be redundant, but the ordinance does allow schools in residential districts. This property is zoned residential. The elementary is an authorized special use, and again, that same Illinois Supreme Court case, also separate holding, said that when a municipality identifies a particular use as an authorized special use in a particular district, it has already made the local legislative determination that the use is not out of harmony with the municipality's general zoning plan. It's a slightly different holding than the one we referred to before. So again, just going back to my opening comments, one of the benefits of a special use application is that the village, the plan commission, you as the planning and zoning commission, have the ability to recommend conditions that make it possible to establish and operate the proposed special use on this property. For the July 9th public hearing, you received a report from Mr. Brown, which identified possible conditions of approval for you to consider. One is the cap on enrollment, you heard about that tonight. A cap on special events, which you heard about. The installation of additional fencing and landscaping, which is something you could consider. Increased driveway width, which you actually heard about from our consultant too. Addition of parking spaces, if you determined that was necessary, and additional conditions that you might think, based on what you hear tonight or what you heard previously, questions you might have, questions members of the community might have, answers, all of that together may give you some thoughts on some additional possible conditions. So we are suggesting, in addition to Mr. Brown's list, that you could add these as conditions of approval to any recommendation you might make. One is what we talked about, or I talked about earlier, to require compliance with all applicable laws. And in addition, you'll see at the bottom of the first bullet point, we have received the communication from the Albertan Countryside Fire Protection District about certain concerns which we intend to sit down and talk to them about. Some of them are consistent with what you heard Mr. Bowen talk about, but there are others that we need to discuss with them. So you could make as a condition of approval that we meet with the Fire Protection District and successfully address their concerns. Again, we've given you very specific, a very specific proposal for a cap on enrollment, and we've also given you a specific limitation or restriction on after-school events that I mentioned earlier. That could be a possible condition of approval. Same with leasing out the space to third parties. And then finally, again, this is very commonly done by many municipalities where traffic is a concern, and it is, needless to say, often a concern, impact of traffic on neighbors. We have proposed a plan, and Sarah talked about communications to the families and rules of operation for drop-off and pickup. But you may find after the school is open and operating, the village may find, or the neighbors may find after the school is open and operating for 6 months or a year or whatever, that there are still some problems. So it's not uncommon to make a condition of approval that a look-back be built into any ordinance of approval, meaning that the village would have the right to hire its own traffic consultant after the school's been in operation for a while, have that traffic consultant look at what's going on, and potentially make some additional recommendations for addressing what are then perceived to be ongoing concerns or problems. Again, this is not what I'm proposing, or what we're proposing here is not unique. It's often done. I will tell you, in the many projects I've worked on over the years, and I've worked on many projects over many years, I've seen and provided for these look-back provisions, not just for schools, but for commercial developments, grocery stores going into areas near residential communities, high schools with major athletic events taking place. I have, in all the years that I've seen these types of provisions, worked into ordinances, and in all the years where I've seen the villages or the cities, municipalities in the area take advantage of them by doing a look back, in every single case, the village's traffic consultant has come back and said it's working fine, and we don't have any further new recommendations. So oftentimes the perceived fears of the neighbors don't pan out, but just to make sure that happens here as well, we're proposing as a condition of approval that you include a look-back provision in your recommendation, and that the village do likewise in any ordinance of approval should they decide to adopt an approval ordinance. That concludes our presentation. We thank you very much for letting us run through it in its entirety, and we look forward to any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you. Did you have a question?
The gentleman that did the traffic study, when you talked about this traffic study, you did your study, a few questions. One, is the actual drop-off of the children up to what point? Is it, I've got pictures, and there's some of the pictures are cut off. I see the U-shape, or the driveway that comes around, the newer driveway. Is the drop-off right where it meets the actual upper driveway near the garage? Where's the actual drop-off?
Yes, the drop-off would be up towards the house,
So where, you're gonna have staff, right?
150 feet.
So you'll have staff, correct?
Correct.
So where will the handicap parking be for any staff member or any child or parent.
So, the picture, let's see if I can get it.
There's going to be, I would assume, some ADA compliance, right? Once we get through this, through the fire district and through the village, because if you're gonna have even 10 kids, 15
Right,
kids,
so
and you're gonna have
if you look
staff.
at by the garage phase, up at that end of the drive is where kids will walk in, there's a door around the
Yeah.
side of the garage. They
Is
will
that,
be-
you're talking about that picture on the left there, right? Those
Correct.
garages?
Those
So-
garages.
So the parking, will there be actual like parking area there for faculty, for
No,
parents?
there is, so the second picture, if you look, where this little blue barn is past there's about, and you can maybe see this from the aerial view, 10 parking spaces.
Yeah.
That if a parent needs to come in and have a meeting with a teacher, or the teachers are parking,
Right.
any sort of staff would park back there.
But there's gonna be considerations and offers for handicap, right? ADA
We could
children.
put one right in front of the garage,
Well,
that would be right
so the way
there.
it'll work eventually is that if this goes through, we'll get a plat, a survey, we'll get a drawing, and we'll actually, the village, the engineering department of our village will actually dictate how and where it's gonna go.
Okay.
You'll probably need, I would imagine, at least a minimum one handicap stall.
Okay.
And it cannot interfere with any cars that are gonna be coming in, turning, and which also means you're gonna need handicap entrances, handicap ramps, you're gonna need handicap bathrooms with grab bars. So there's a lot of things to be considered when we get into that. The other thing, sir, is you do realize that I think the first 10 or 15 feet of that apron entrance to the driveway is actually city, and you have a culvert there that would have to be thought about and maintained as well, right? And then I think if we get into vegetation and trimming and cutting, we're starting to cut trees and vegetation, which actually technically belong to Camden Hills, so I guess that would come through a permit approval. The reason why I'm bringing all these things up is because I heard a lot about the traffic study, but these are the things you guys are gonna be facing. And I have not heard any consideration at all to, if you're gonna have 25 to 45 kids, I don't think you're gonna be a person that's gonna want, not allow any handicapped kids into your school, right?
Correct,
Okay, or parents or teachers.
correct.
So I think that that's something that, I didn't hear anything about. What I'm hearing so far is a lot of traffic studies, and I'm sure there's a lot of people here that live in the neighborhood. Traffic help. Yeah, the impact on our roads, because I'm on the Public Works Committee here, so I'm worried about those roads, and the fact that nobody talked about the fact that there's a culvert there, and shrubbery, and there's utility easements, but also, once you guys get into this, you're going to have to provide ADA accessibility. And I don't know if that's the fire department that would be involved in that, or our engineering department, who exactly would be involved in that, but that's something that's gonna have to be, considered.
Again, that's why we said in our presentation, and as a condition, that the law requires it, it's gonna be
Right.
complied with. Just like the sprinklers were not anticipated initially, sprinkling the building was not anticipated, but the fire district brought that to Sarah's attention, and as I explained to her, if that's what the law requires, which it does, it's gotta be done.
Right, but I think the reason why I'm thinking about all this stuff is because, you had mentioned oftentimes the word special use, and I mean, special use in a neighborhood, I'm gonna throw this out there, right? I've got a bunch of letters from people here, and a lot of it clearly states this is zoned as residential, okay? There's even some covenants here that actually state no tract nor any structure located therein shall be used for any business or commercial. And so, when people move into this neighborhood and they buy the house, I know I live in Fox Mill, and before I bought it, I had to understand what my HOA was all about. But there are certain things that we allow in Campton for special uses. And so I think, from a voting standpoint from us, we really have to consider and think about what the definition of that special use is, because I love the idea of the school and educating these kids. I think it's great, right? Put them together with nature. I know we have a lot of people here who are involved in open spaces, then, they do a great job with that too, so we have a lot of areas for, that the same thing can be done there. So my thing is that I just, once we define this actual special use, and then we start to sort of, play with the words of zoning, what's going to be the next step? Is it going to be, somebody wants to open up a chiropractor office in the neighborhood or a doctor's office. I just think that, once we define it,
Yeah,
you know what I
well,
mean?
it's already defined, so it's already defined.
Yeah, but-
It's a special use.
Right.
That is it is a special use that is allowable. Allowable with public hearing and special use.
Right.
It's been defined,
Okay,
so.
but not authorized, it's just defined right
It's
now.
just, it is defined.
Right.
Yes,
Okay.
so it is defined of what the petitioner is asking for is, looking at the zoning ordinance, is a school, secondary,
Right.
primary, secondary school in a residential neighborhood,
Yeah.
which, going to the matrix in our zoning
So-
ordinance, is defined. So
Exactly.
that's not really an issue.
No, I'm not saying it's an issue. What I'm saying is that I'm looking at the steps that it's going to come in to us, and then at some point beyond us, whether we vote yea or nay, there's going to be all these other things that will come into play with it, you know, as far as health department, fire marshal, fire department, all these codes and different things that are.
Right, and those are the things that we, as a body, are gonna try to, as conditions, and I think that was some of the presentation was saying they have conditions, they understand what we can do, we can, you know, recommend for approval, recommend deny, or we can recommend approval with conditions. So that would be part of the conditions, saying, hey, we need the road length, or X or Y or Z, or whatever those things are, so we'll be taking some more, information and finding out what other concerns there are, and then I think the idea is to say, hey, how will those concerns be addressed, or can they be addressed satisfactorily? If they can be, then we add those conditions in. That's kind of the layout.
And Kara Frederick's correct, it's defined in the fact that, that the applicant has the ability to apply for the use to be considered. If a particular use is not defined in the list of special uses, an applicant can't come forth and apply for a special use. They'd have to first apply for an amendment to the zoning ordinance to include that use in the special use matrix, the list of special uses, and then apply for the special use, which would subject it to your consideration, the board's consideration, and the possibility that conditions could be placed on it. It appears that the applicant today has indicated that a number of conditions that they would be willing to agree to, probably also the ones that were included in the traffic study as well. Sometimes applicants can't actually meet those conditions even after a special use is granted. Sometimes it's outside of their control, whether it be financing or another regulatory authority that governs them. So a lot of the things that you discussed it would be outside of this process, but it wouldn't be up to the consideration of members. Just placing the conditions, if that's the decision that you make, and that they're reasonable, is what you have to think about today.
All right. One question I did have, and this is actually to both. I understand that there's some concern about the septic field there, and basically getting the King County Health Department to sign off on that. I'm not 100% sure, but I understand the petitioner has to fill out an application to the village, and then the village submits it to the county, and I don't know where we are in that process.
I think, Mr. Chairman, I think we're nowhere in the process,
Okay.
but we understand that that's gonna have to be
Okay.
addressed.
Okay, all right, and that'd be like a condition,
Correct.
potentially, something.
I mean, it's an engineering issue, and, you know, most of the engineers I've dealt with over the years can say anything can be done, it's just a matter of cost. But, we have not looked into that yet,
Okay.
but obviously they'll have to, you know, they'll have to perk and they'll have to work and not be at, you know, the county and everybody will have to be, okay with it.
Yeah, okay.
I have reached out to King County. The village of Camden Hills had to make the request. Like, I couldn't do it as an individual or as a school. King County Health Department said the request has to come from the municipality.
Yeah.
So then, once you do that, then I can take the next step.
Okay, and I don't know if that's the ground, I thought that the petitioner actually has to make a request with the village first.
Okay.
And then, once the petitioner makes the request to the village, then the village can do that, so. all right.
But, the bottom line is, as you said correctly before, Mr. Chairman, that would have to be another condition
Yeah,
of
okay.
approval.
Yeah,
Satisfying.
yeah, right, okay. Other questions from members up here? You'll have more opportunities to ask questions, but just right now with the petitioner who's up here, is there any questions that you have? Yeah, if not at this time, I'd like to open it up to the floor, for comments. If, like last time, if you would be so kind as to just kind of come up one at a time, I'm not gonna call out people or pick people, so, but if you'd like to make a comment, please come up to the podium, and, I'm not putting a time limit on it, but, you know, if we could try to get right to the point of what it is, that'd be greatly appreciated, so. And just for the record, if you might have spoken before, if you could just state your name.
This is an open meeting.
It's a public hearing, so it is authorized, it's a public hearing, it's authorized. No,
Can I ask you?
I live on Foxfield. I'm just a regular resident.
Private citizen to be videoing that?
legal.
This is a public meeting and public hearing, so it not only is it being recorded by the village, the camera here, there are security cameras in the room as well, but it is a public meeting, there's no right to privacy in the public.
Yeah, but this is her private phone, so.
It's being broadcasted live on Facebook currently in the What's Happening Campton Hills groups. We actually have 10 people watching.
It's still a public
So
meeting.
then I will say that I put on my
Yeah.
Facebook, on Facebook. And
She can video. Okay?
Anyone here?
Anybody, all right, so if you just, kind of just state your name just for the record,
My name is Yana Hodges,
thank you.
and I live on Country View Lane, and I would like to discuss the traffic safety, which falls under the proposed special use that will not endanger public health, safety, or welfare. I feel that by allowing Headwaters to move forward with opening a school will affect the safety and welfare of the community. This 5-acre parcel and home sits right off of Campton Hills Road with a driveway that is somewhat hidden, this is a fact. It sits down where there is a significant dip in the road as well. The risk of accidents becomes higher given the fact that there will be anywhere from 25 to 45 in future vehicles entering and leaving the driveway in the morning and at mid-afternoon hours, Monday through Friday. These times of days is when traffic in Campton Hills Road is generally higher. There is a high probability that traffic could be backed up on Campton Hills Road if these requirements are not met. This brings me to the point of the speed limit, which has not been discussed here. And the speed limit on Campton Hills Road between Town Hall and Anderson Road is 50 miles an hour. See that on a regular basis. There are a wide variety of vehicles that travel on this road: cars, motorcycles, bicyclists, school buses, farming equipment. And finally, we have, in addition to this, there have been accidents on this road, some with serious injuries. With this potential hazard that to me is very obvious, do we want more accidents or worse? And in closing, it's been said that the Headwaters idea is comparable to Pearson Creek School, which is kind of crazy because there's a 4-way stop at Pearson Creek, Holcomb and Burr Road. Thank you.
Anybody else would like to speak? Now's a good time to step forward.
Make a follow-up statement to what was just said.
Could you state your name for the record, please?
John Halbrook, I
Thank you.
live on Campbell Hill Road. The engineer mentioned, I believe he said that all traffic going into the drive is gonna be making a right-hand turn. Is that right? Coming out to make a right-hand turn. Okay, so even if you wanna go east, you still have to make a right-hand turn. Now, the traffic coming into the driveway has to make a right-hand turn, or the people coming from the west have to make a left-hand turn. And then they're doing this between 8 and 8:15 simultaneously, so it's a matter of, I'll let you go, no, I wanna go first. Who is going to make that turn in? And there's gonna be cars backing up, and they can't stop on the shoulder of the road, waiting to make the right-hand turn or their left-hand turn in. So there's hesitation there, and therefore there's cars who are driving through, all the way through, who are get stopped and cause a backup from through traffic. Did I make myself point?
I understand your point.
Okay, in other words, do I go, does he go, who goes first? Am I polite, or are you gonna be polite? And then trying to get out, they will wanna, now have to make a right-hand turn, even if they wanna go east, I guess.
My understanding is that it was encouraged, I mean, the terminology, I believe, was encouraged to take a right-hand turn. I believe there's no other cars coming. That was the terminology that I saw in the petition's packet. They were encouraged to go right, not necessarily encouraged.
Right. But in reality, what really happens?
Hopefully the safest thing happens. People will be safe in their own self-interest.
The word hopefully is very good. That's all I have to say.
My name's Dan Korth. I'm going to speak on two different topics tonight. The first topic is going to be more of a professional presentation. If you look on, there should be a packet of information that was handed out earlier. I think it's in, should be in the order of speakers. And the first one of mine, right on top, should be addressing the pollution of Mill Creek that runs adjacent to the property, starts south of Hampton Hills Road, and extends down through to the north and northeast until it daylights about 2,000 feet downstream. I'm a professional geologist, retired. I've worked as a professional geologist for about 44 years. And the last 32 years is focused primarily on groundwater contamination issues in northern Illinois and most of the Midwest. And anyway, so I did a little study on the situation we have here. And what I was concerned about was that this house was built in 1977. There's a residential septic system installed there that was designed back, in the 70s, late 70s, and it was designed for like four to five people, a 4-bedroom house. Now they are proposing to have an enrollment of up to 25, I heard earlier, and now I heard increased by 5 today, up to 45 students. So if you had students, faculty, administration staff, parents, or whoever visitors coming in, at some point you're going to have over 50 people every day using that septic system, flushing toilets, running sinks, and there's no doubt in my mind that that existing system is going to be overloaded, and just will not be able to handle it. What I had, I don't even make. Just wanted to show you here this is a FEMA map of the, defined floodplain by FEMA. It runs, this is the Biddle Farm here to the south, here's Country View Lane, here's Farm View. And I outlined the property, I'll just call it the property that we're talking about, in red here. You can see that floodplain is defined, it covers 95% of the property. So on this, this area, there's a little culvert right about here. It's over 1 square mile, all funnels down right here, and it comes through here and runs right across there. So during flood stages, which occurs a handful of times a year, we get heavy rains on a continual basis. Water runs through here and it daylights. It'll come up. The ground will become saturated, and it comes up above ground and gets swept downstream here. Now, I couldn't find any design or any drawings on the installation of this septic system. I did a FOIA request with the King County Water and Environment and Water Resources Department, and they had no records of the septic system that exists there. And in fact, one of the representatives there said that any system that's older than 1990, it's very common that there's no records of it anywhere. So I couldn't find one, they couldn't find one. And so assuming that this is just a residential property, then it's a residential system. Whenever that ground gets saturated, any sewage that's in that system is gonna get flushed out and go downstream. Now with a family of 4 or 5, it's probably okay. But if you got 50 people or more, which will happen, it's gonna flood up and it's gonna go downstream. It's gonna pollute Mill Creek, every flood event. And there's no engineering you can do to improve that septic system concept. It's gonna prevent that. It's gonna go into the ground and it's gonna go. But that's not the biggest problem. This is a geological map that I got from the Illinois State Geological Survey. People are not familiar with geological maps. They use color coding and symbols to represent different geological formations. This particular area here is basically the Biddle Farm and the Campton Hills Farm subdivision area. Okay, and there's the subject property. Mill Creek really starts back here, where I put this blue dash line here, but it runs underground. Now you gotta kind of think in 3 dimensions as a geologist, because water moves underground as well as across over the ground when you're talking about streams here. Now this, there is a key in the pack that I gave you. This yellow strip here, that's called the Cahokia Formation. And it's comprised of mainly sand and gravel. It was deposited, when that melted away, the glaciers, melted off and created this channel through here. It goes all the way around, ends up down in the Fox River. Okay? Now, this is a superficial geologic map. Now, if you went out to the property, you wouldn't see this because over the years, this sand is actually buried below 1 foot, maybe 2 foot thick. But below there's a sand and gravel seam here. So there's always water running through there underground. And if you look here, this unit, it's about 250 feet wide as defined by the Illinois Geological Survey. And at this location, and they call this an upland area, it can be up to 10 feet thick. Down by the Fox River, it's about 30 feet thick. So there's always water running here, because this is, like I said, there's a square mile of drainage here coming through here. It's only evident to the naked eye during the flood stages. But there's water flowing through here all the time. You just gotta get down and find it. In fact, I think this, I think there is a tile that runs through here. I couldn't find any record of where the tile is located at exactly, but I know my property, which backs up right here, connects to it, right about here, because I have a couple drain tiles when they engineered my lot. And it connects to this tile here and flows downstream. So anyway, back to the septic system. Now, you can see that almost the entire property, 85–90% of the property is underlain by this sand and gravel. So, and there's no records on the septic system, so you gotta, I assume that that septic system is either laid right in this gravel or very darn close to it. So any effluent that's going into the septic system is running right down into the sand and gravel and flowing downstream. And again, but there's only 4 or 5 people in the household, probably not a big issue. But if you got 50 people using that system every day, you know, that's like 3,000 gallons get flushed down there every day. So, to continue, just read my conclusions. Now, a single-family waste stream may not create a significant impact on Mill Creek, but an 8 to 10 times increase in wastewater effluent flow will have a significant negative impact on Mill Creek groundwater downstream in the surface water as well. Now, groundwater is the water that flows under the ground, and you have surface water. But groundwater is always moving through the Cahokia Formation below the surface. The Mill Creek Headwaters watershed area is large, big area. The groundwater funnels down gradient to cross under Campton Hills Road at the property boundary here through culvert. The groundwater quality may already be slightly impacted by the old septic system on the property during normal use. But if usage is increased 8 to 10 times normal volume, the system overload will lead to significant negative impacts to groundwater and surface water quality during flood stage flow. But more importantly, the groundwater pollution will occur on a continual daily basis during normal groundwater flow, which will continually pollute surface water and groundwater, Mill Creek downstream. And like I said, enlarging or improving the existing system isn't going to do any good, because that's what leach fields are. They drain out. And it's just going to go out there and drain out. There's nothing you can do about it to improve that system. Now also, just as a reminder, I attached an addendum to that packet, and it just has a listing of some of the common household pollutants that occur in a septic system. And you can go, I won't go through them all, but you can go through it. And, because there's pathogens, different nutrients like nitrates, phosphorus, pharmaceuticals, chemicals, hormones, flame retardants, microplastics, organic matter, which brings me to the other point. Now, they have a bunch of goats and chickens wandering around out here too. Where's all that go? It goes down in the soil. Away it goes. All right. So so anyway, it's going to affect human health and the local ecosystem, without a doubt. Okay. That takes care of that. Now I'm going to put my next topic is my personal property. This is my property right here. Now, it's funny how they measure this. 293 feet away from their property boundary, which is my property, to my house. Well, I use all this. I don't just stay in the house. I'm here. Okay? Half of my backyard, if you look at my second packet, I have a picture here, recent picture of my backyard. Okay? This is a tall grass prairie that I established over 27 years ago. I've been nurturing it, caring for it, and it's beautiful. We enjoy it. My kids have enjoyed it. My grandkids are enjoying it. I have friends over who love it. And if you look at this picture, there's my backyard on fire. Okay? As you all know, in prairie lands, you do prescribed burns. And I do this every spring. And I burn it. Here you can see that wall of flame there. And I burn it. It burns right up to the fence line. That's what I've been doing for 27 years. No problem. I've called the fire department before I do it. And I had no issues with it, ever. But now, if I'm going to have a school full of kids, 30 to 45 kids and 10 adults coming playing around here, what's that gonna do to my tradition? And I should state too that from the last June 18th meeting, it was stressed that the commission or the board makes their decision based on the 3 criteria that's outlined in Article 3 of the zoning approval process and Section E approval standards. Okay? So, like this definitely affects item 1. The proposed special use does not